Why is Brokish talking about farming? And what does that have to do with Black people? If there are really all these Black farmers out there, why don't we ever see them on television or hear about them in the media? In what unique ways are Black farmers dealing with the brokish that America consistently throws our way? Well, we're going to talk about it after the break.
Brokers, welcome to another episode of Brokers, where we talk about the unbelievable ish this country has done to keep us broke. Now here are your hosts, Amber and Erica.
Hey brokers, I'm Amber.
And I'm Erica.
And this payday, y'all, we are talking about Black farmers. Believe it or not, that is exactly what we're talking about.
And I can't believe it because I don't know anything about farming. Like, how did we even come up with this, right?
Listen, child, I had an ivy when I was pledging, and I was the only person in the history of the free world that killed a whole ivy. So,
oh, you are not. Look, you are not alone.
Yeah,
because my ivy also didn't make it.
Listen, I thought I was the only one. So, see, no. we don't have no business doing this show, okay?
Before we jump into our interview today, let's recap our last episode where we talked about productivity as a poison. Amber shared with us how the notion of productivity is certainly anti-Black and based on the idea of people as resources that can be leveraged by the ruling class. We also talked about how even during a pandemic, the expectations to perform at higher and higher levels persist. While we recognize the fact that this is America, and y'all know we have to work or they're going to kill us, we want brokers to listen to our bodies and ensure that we carve out time for rest and relaxation because we are more than what we create.
So, Erica, tell the people what about Black farming we're talking about.
Well, I'm so excited today, Amber, because we have an expert. We have an actual Black farmer with us. We have Dr. Cindy Ayers Elliott, and she, like us, Amber, is a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. Oh, my goodness. You know, I was waiting. I was like, is somebody going to do it? But more important than that, she is the CEO of Footprint Farms, LLC, which is a 68-acre specialty crops, vegetable, and livestock farm with a focus on agritourism for community development in the city of Jackson, Mississippi. And they grow a bunch of different fruits and vegetables, and they raise meat, goat, chicken, cattle, all of that, horses. And Dr. Ayers Elliott believes that planting seeds in the earth will grow fresh vegetables, but planting seeds in the minds of young people will create a new universe of scholars. And so we're excited about that. But before we start the conversation, we thought it would be helpful just to talk about some basic information related to farming to sort of set the stage, Amber. So if you can allow me to tell you about my extensive research
Farmer
my
Erica.
Google search, my very short Google search as I take this very seriously. So the brokers, Dr. Ayers Elliott, and that's what we call the folks who listen to our show. They oftentimes know that when we start talking about something, we start talking about slavery because this is America. And most of us have heard the idea of former enslaved families being given 40 acres and a mule. And while there were initially laws that aimed to support this idea, America played this game of psych, and they did that with the newly freed people. And they were like, you know what? We are going to give people land, but who we're really going to give it to is we're going to give it to the former Confederates. That's really who we're going to end up giving the land to. So as we think about that and think about all of these really important American institutions that were built on land grants that should have been extended to Black families and ultimately were not. And despite Black people being 13% of the population, we only own 1% of the farmland in this country.
Wow.
And just to put that into perspective, just about land ownership in general, the 5 largest landowners in America, who are all white, own more rural land than all of Black America combined. So we can think about Ted Turner. I think a lot of people know that Ted Turner has a whole bunch of land, but apparently that man has 25% of the land that all of Black America has. Ted Turner owns that much land. So he has a lot of land. And I guess when I think about it, it's not really any different than how we know that there are these 400 billionaires and they have more wealth than all of Black America combined.
Mm-hmm.
And we also need to think about the fact that we probably have so few Black farmers because of capital and access to it. And only 1% of those USDA loans that are offered by the government actually make it to Black farmers. And We can go back to 1920, where there were almost 1 million Black farmers, and today we've got fewer than 50,000, according to a study by the USDA in 2017. And most of those changes to the level of farm ownership is really due to nefarious practices by the government and individuals that have been aimed against our community. So I read this article recently, and in it, there's a gentleman named Ray Windbush, who is the director of the Institute for Urban Research at Morgan State University. And he shared, there's this idea that most Blacks were lynched because they did something untoward to a young woman. That's not true. Most Black men were lynched between 1890 and 1920 because whites wanted their land.
Wow.
And so that, Amber, made me think about our recent episode that we had with Josh Poe, where we talked about gentrification and
Yep.
how even today, right, you've got the government coming in and using just whatever measures to take land away for development and to beautify and gentrify these neighborhoods. And it's just all really sad. But all told, as we consider the racial wealth gap and the lack of wealth within the Black community, much of it can be attributed to these land grabs that were leveraged against us. And if you want to understand wealth and inequality in this country, you have to understand Black land loss, was one quote that I read.
Oh, that's a sermon right there, child.
I mean, America is gonna America. Is what we find out. But I'm so excited. We have an actual Black farmer. I'm trying to think if I've ever met a farmer before. I mean, maybe on a field trip or something. This sounds very silly, but I'm serious.
Not a
Have you?
Black one. No, I haven't. I mean, to be honest, like my family's from East Texas. My great grandmother had a patch of land in her backyard where she had like a vegetable garden, and
Mm-hmm.
she kept some pigs and chickens. Child, I thought that was a farm for a very long time till I realized, no,
It
this is
was.
just a house with a couple acres. It's not a whole farm. But yeah, that's about as close as it comes with my people who live down in East Texas.
Well, here we go. Dr. Ayers Elliott, it is a pleasure to have you on Brokish. Thank you for joining us.
Hello, and thank you so very much. It is my pleasure to be here. Amber and Erica, thank you for allowing me to be a part of this. I've just been sitting back listening to the dialogue, and I've been like, all right, these ladies got some numbers going on, so I'm excited. First of all, let me say two things. I'm Cindy Ayers Elliott, and I'm a farmer. And I'm not just a farmer, I'm a Black woman farmer in the great
Amen.
state of Mississippi. Here I am. Yes.
Yes.
And it's good to be here, and I'm so happy with this topic. I think what you said is going to bring a lot of dialoguing to what we can talk about, and actually get some good information out there, but to actually talk about the facts as well. So I'm excited about this. And ladies, let me just say, I love the dialogue and the camaraderie and the energy that you put into this. So I'm excited to be here. As we say in farming, let's plant a seed. Let's get it on.
Well, come on
Yes.
then.
Yes,
So,
yes, yes.
Dr. Ayers Elliott, I was actually introduced to you by a friend of mine, so I'm grateful for that connection. But when I was talking to you before the show, you were telling me that farming for you isn't something that you've been doing your whole life. So, why don't you start out by telling us more about how you came to be a Black woman farmer?
Oh, well, thank you so much. And a Black woman farmer that wears pearls. Let me put that on.
Yes,
Yes.
ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
And this is a new face. First of all, this is my I guess my passion that I never knew I had. But the
Mhm.
passion is not so much about the agricultural part as it is about making a difference and impacting into my community. And in this case, it was all about health. So farming for me came around the corner to how do we make a difference for health? How do we fight diabetes and hypertension in our communities? What do we need to do, and how do we do this? We've had problems identified, especially here in my state of Mississippi, where every statistic that's bad, we're number one. For everything that's
Mhm.
good, I don't think we make the charts at all in any of those. And the biggest
Mhm.
part is about health and access to health and healthy foods. So for me, diabetes, hypertension, high blood pressure, kidney disease, everything that we talk about from generations now and back has been a big cause of the disenfranchised for Black people in America overall. Has been a big part of health and access to health. So farming for me and food for me is a part of how do we fill this void and at the same time bring about a generational change in making sure that health is wealth. And it's not
Yeah.
just so much of the amount of dollars that you make, because if you're not healthy enough to really enjoy it, truly, what is it really worth? Health cannot be bought. We can look at this from everything that's happening right now, especially in 2020 with this pandemic. It has no name of anyone, regardless of rich or poor, healthy or unhealthy. It's still been making a way and finding its way to kill millions of people in a very short time. So we want
Well,
to talk about
it has a name of Black people because it loves us.
well, it
The
loves it
virus
loves
loves us.
us because of the lack of access we've had to health. We have to go
Yeah.
back and look at the generations of where we come from. We're strong and we've survived a lot of things. But when you look at our diets and what we had access to, it makes a big difference in our genes, our makeup. 5 generations ago or 6 generations ago, our foreparents, our ancestors, in which the shoulders that we stand on was actually much healthier than we are. Much healthier, definitely stronger than we are right now with the access that we supposedly have. One of the big difference in that is that the food was better. A lot of it was directly from the earth with not a lot of chemicals. Even though we did not get the best food, we got access to food that we grew without a lot of chemicals that's being grown right now in the food that we eat. The other side of that, yes, we worked hard, and as not just as a farmer, but as people of color, Black people, period, we worked hard, and that means we got more exercise and more energy expanded, whether we wanted to or not. That also helped to build our bodies and stronger during that time. So history makes a difference, and we have to always look back at history to be able to pull the information that we need for the present and for the future, and some things should not be repeated. But
Yeah.
if we don't do something about it, it will be repeated.
Definitely. And I think that's a great point, just sort of doing a historical tracing of how we evaluate or look at the direct correlation between a lot of the issues we talk about here on Brokish, like our health, like how we're able to show up and be mentally clear. And it's interesting because I think a lot of us assume farmers are sort of these very unsophisticated, earthy people who kind of live in these rural places with really no ability to connect to people who don't have the same experience as them. And yet I hear you talking so very clearly about the direct connection between the seeds that are planted in the ground, our health, our wealth, and also our position within a systemic framework that is disadvantageous to us. And so, one of the questions I want to ask you is, what are some other misconceptions you found that people have about farmers in terms of what they do and the role they play in really helping to dismantle a lot of the inequality and inequity that's present in this society against Black people?
Great, and that's a great question, and I'm so glad you asked that. So let's talk about it. Well, first of all, farming is probably one of the most lucrative business that you can be in. Well, let's talk money first. I always like this part. The Department of
Well, let's do it.
Agriculture, USDA, uh, is the second largest budget in America, only second to the Department of Defense. Let me say it again. The United States
Really?
Department of Agriculture, USDA, is the second largest budget in America, only second to the Department of Defense. That should tell you where the money is. Now let's follow the money.
Right.
A big part about that. A lot of money is there. A lot of wealth has been built and still can be built there from agriculture. Agriculture is in everything that we do. You say you don't know any farmers. Yes, you do. Not just from the food that's in the grocery stores, but it's also in the clothes that you wear, also from the
Oh,
shoes that you put on your feet, the makeup that you wear, the lipstick, everything comes from a farmer in some sense of fashion. Clothes is made from cotton. Cotton and is one of the biggest products or commodities that's being grown in America. You think about your car that you drive with your gasoline. It comes a lot of that comes from corn. So a lot of this
Mhm.
are from farmers and things that touch you every day. When you talk about commodities, when they talk about commodities being traded on the New York Stock Exchange, the commodities they're talking about is the commodities of cotton, soybeans, wheat,
Mhm.
rice, and a lot of this they're talking about is not human consumption. Think about it. A lot of the corn that's
Yeah.
grown in the world is not grown for people to eat. Not the percentage of it is grown for fuel. The same thing when you look about for cotton and other things, it's not grown for human consumption to eat. It's for other things. So when you're looking at numbers and dollars, we should really think about truly what farming is. Farming is not just putting a seed in the soil and letting it grow. It's so much more than that. It touches every part
Mhm.
of our life. So, regardless of what you're looking to do and major in it, I love to say this: USDA has that. If you're an accountant or CPA, USDA has that. If you're looking to do research in
Right.
sciences, even in medicine and in health, guess what? USDA has that. When you look at policies, how policies are being made and how they're being set to implement, USDA function is to take care of the earth, the water, and the air. That actually is the main functions of it. And then with that comes taking care of the people. USDA has
Mhm.
different
So,
agencies, different parts that do different things that impact our everyday life. But when we're looking at this, we got to first look at the financial part and then go back in. Because I think it was Erica, one of the things you said in the history of that a lot of the lynchings and killings of black people throughout our history of time was not because of any actions that they did, but it was because they wanted to possess something that they had. And a big part of that was their land and able to get it. And right now, it's not even just lynching, it's still happening today with tax sales. A lot of the land that's being lost
Yeah.
and has been lost of black farmers and black people in general has been through the tax sales or the lack of paying taxes on the land that we have. So we got to understand what really makes what up and how it works to be able to have land, which is wealth, to be able to have
Mhm.
that and to utilize that. Is coming today, is still happening, of how many people not paying their taxes, how much land has been lost. And when you're thinking land, I know you're thinking mass land, but I'm also talking homesteads, I'm talking homes, I'm talking air property. I bet you know families that grandparents had land and left it to the children, and because there was no will and there's no coming together, that might be 500 acres and 1,000 heirs, or it's 500 acres, 1,000 acres now with even 200 heirs that won't even talk to each other. So what happens? That property either is lost or someone else is taking it over little by little, you don't know, or it's being sold for taxes because no one is coming together to maintain it. So this too today is still a major problem for how we as black people in America is losing land, not having land or not even acquiring even acquiring land to have. But what we have, we're not keeping and holding on to because the second and third generations of landowners don't think it's worth keeping, don't think it's worth learning more about to pay the taxes on it and understand that land is wealth. So that's one big part of it.
land is absolutely wealth. And so you said a lot of interesting things. And so I want to maybe ask you a couple of questions, but I'll start with this. So you talked about sort of the USDA, and we know the USDA is a government agency. And so as I think about the government, and so what you don't know, Dr. Ayers Elliott, is that I have been a little critical of, President Barack Obama. I'm going to put that to the side. But anyway, from a policy perspective.
Hmm.
But when I talked to you, I was happy to hear that I feel like you benefited from his administration. And then I also read a little bit about that his administration gave support to Black farmers. And so there was this lawsuit known as Pigford v. Glickman that charged the USDA with discriminating against Black farmers when distributing loans and also with failing to investigate complaints. And they had widespread bias, right? So the government did go on to settle with the Black farmers. But this is my time, because I don't want anybody to think I'm a hater. So this is my time to say I want to hear some good thoughts about President Barack Obama. And then if you could sort of
Woo!
juxtapose that, if you know me, this is a very big thing.
Okay.
If you could kind of balance that against
Mhm.
differences that you've seen with the Trump administration, and then finally, what you're expecting from the administration of your soror, Senator Kamala Harris.
Absolutely. Now let me tell you, I think this is a good time because let's set the record straight on a couple of things. I know Barack
So let's start
Obama.
with President
Yeah,
Obama. Give him his
let's start
props.
with let's start with that. I had the pleasure of meeting him and spending some time with First Lady Michelle Obama as it relates to health. Let me just say two things. One thing is this. President Obama came into office and he had a hell of a row to hoe. Okay. When he came in
Mhm.
looking at everything that's there, you got to, how many hundreds of years, or how many years has everything been in place in America as relates to policies and procedures that has is already sanctioned in the depth of politics and the depth of America right now. He was president for only 8 years. It only took 200 years to get us there for 8 years. And when you think about anything is changing and what can be changed, it goes back to today as it was then. It's policy. How do
Mhm.
you change policy? How long does it take to change policy that's been around for thousands of years when you look at it, when you really look at it? As you look at hundreds of years in America, it's all about policy. Even today, there are policies that are still in place that you really got to know what it look and how it impacts you every day that you don't even think about. That's embedded in. So he could only do so much of what he could do. He could not strike the pen and say, "Okay, everybody's getting that 40 acres and the mule. Forget the mule. Everybody's getting the 40 acre and a John Deere tractor." That could not happen. Glitman, you talk about the lawsuit that was filed. My parents was a part of that lawsuit. I had friends and colleagues that was a part of that lawsuit, and that lawsuit came about, of course, long before Barack Obama. And this was happening to black farmers long before then when it came into right now in the farm bill. I mean, food, of course, is a big part, but for small farmers, one of the things to put in little things you don't think about. Do you know in order to participate with uh, the U.S. Department of Agriculture under the Farm Bill, you have to have a farm number, and the only way you can get a
Mm.
farm number is and a farm number gives you access to all of the different programs that USDA has, but you got to know what they are, first of all. It goes back and it opened it up so that anyone could really know what's there and what they should be doing and not what they say. A big
Mhm.
part of this was done under the Farm Bill. But right now, at the oldest 1890 land grant institution in America, which is Alcorn State University, that happens to be located in Lorman, Mississippi, is where this policy center is housed, but is there representing all of the 1890s and small farmers throughout the country as a voice, a written voice, a voice that don't just read it but write it, and to submit it in and lobby for it in Congress for things to change. So we got to look at one of the things that was one of the biggest part that happened, and they had been trying for I don't know 40, 30 years since Black was in Congress to get something like this done. The 1880s, 90s have it. The 62s have it. Everyone has someone to represent. Cotton has a group that represents and studies for them. Black farmers or underserved or people of color did not have this. So now this is in place, which is making a difference already. One of the things that just happened with the last farm bill, and it was only a year old, and this is show you what the power of the people can do. Urban farms was actually added into the component of farming. A
Oh,
lot of
nice. And
urban
Dr.
farming.
Ayers Elliott, don't you have an urban farm?
I am. I'm an urban farm by my location inside the city. But urban even means smaller, that an acre or a half acre that you can actually receive a farm number for. So you would be eligible for the same programs that a farmer that has 100 acres or 20 acres or 1,000 acres to have access to.
Amber,
That-
we can mess around and get a farm
That's
number?
literally
You can
what I
get
was
a
about to
farm
say.
number,
Like,
absolutely. And you don't have to just own the land. You can also lease it for the ones
oh,
who have it to be able to get a farm number to start growing. And not just for and this also helps to improve your land quality, but also your land in general. And some of this money is called financial assistance, but it's really a grant and it's not even a payback loan. Money that's available for farmers to help build their farms. And this is what has been happening for so many generations of how these farmers got big and huge. They were utilizing our tax dollars, and this is our tax dollars under these administrations that we need to utilize and use more of. And as a black farmer, you can believe it. Not only am I looking and finding all of the policies that connects to that, I'm like an old refrigerator. I won't hold nothing. I'm telling everything I know. I'm telling you
well,
where
that's
it is
interesting.
and how you get to it and where it is. And if you can't do this, let me tell you somebody else to call because there is a lot of things that's available. One of the things we got to start doing more of is planning, researching, and implementing. I'm not
Yeah,
waiting for no one to do it for me. Just like you, I'm doing it for myself to
yeah,
understand what's there. So when I go in, you better believe when I walk through a door, I know your policy is better than you do. I know what's available to me. And guess what? I'm not asking you for it. I'm telling you this is what I want. Now you show me how you're going to get it done for me.
yeah. So I learned just a tiny bit about farming. I live up here in Prosper, Texas,
Hmm.
and Deion Sanders, the football player, lives near me. And a couple of years ago,
You know what? Can I just stop and say that I'm kind of tired of both of y'all? Because Dr. Ayers Elliott is like, I spent time with Michelle and Barack Obama, and
I
Amber's
know
like,
them.
I'm neighbors with Deion Sanders, and
no,
I
no,
just can't
sis.
stand it. But
Yeah,
anyway, Amber,
are
go
we
on.
name
I, I
dropping?
I
Y-
didn't say neighbors, since I
uh,
said near me. But anyway, Dion, there was a bidding war on Dion's land. He sold his house and his land a few years ago, and Kroger and like another grocery store wanted it. But
mhm,
one of the things we learned is that he kept certain animals on his property. He had like a small farm for like tax purposes, right? He was getting some tax benefits from that. And
mhm,
you brought that up just sort of about learning how to accumulate the proper knowledge so you can maximize the benefit to you from the system. And so I just have a couple of questions about that. The first is, why isn't this so widely known? You have the second largest agency in the United States government. You have all of these opportunities. It doesn't sound like you have to have 50 acres or 100 acres. You could be living in a regular home in the middle of an urban city and still have this. Why don't we know about it?
mhm,
And how did you come to learn about it? Like, what was your journey into farming? Because I think for so many people, we just assume, oh, well, I don't live in Nebraska, or I don't live in the Midwest. I don't live in a rural area. So I could
mhm,
never even have these options. And then we see people like you, we see people like Dion leveraging the system to
mhm,
get these benefits. How do people do that?
mhm. And see, and that's it. Let me, they're still keeping the shackles on us in the knowledge pool. They got it in books and they got it everywhere else. But one of the reasons we don't know about it is that because how great it really is, they're not just volunteering and telling, but it is there. It goes back to reason these policy centers are important to be in place so that they can designate out the information through nonprofits and other groups to get the words out. So this is what's going on and to be able to know your rights and what you can do with it. A lot of groups, organizations, still say farming and still put this notion out. Farming is slavery. Farming
Mm,
is sharecropping. Farmers is hard work. You shouldn't want to do this. You shouldn't do this. You don't want to do this. Why do you think they're still saying that? Because
yeah.
of all of the available resources that's there. You think they want you to know? They still want you to think that you go out and you get some land and you work it is slavery. They still want you to think that you got mules and not the sophisticated equipment that you need to work with, that you don't have access to that. We use drones on our farm. Drones.
Ooh.
Uh, drones,
Sophisticated.
which is, but this is the technology that is available that we can utilize to make it better in what we do. I'm not saying farming is not hard work. Being an investment banker was hard work. mentally, physically, stressfully, all of those things was still hard work. So anything you want to do, it's going to take some work to do it. It's going to take your resources. It's going to take your research. But it's a business. Farming is a business, just like any other business you're getting into, except your products is a little different. So you got to
But Dr.
understand
Ayers
what's
Elliott,
available. Yes.
tell us how you went from investment banking to farming, though. Like, how did you do that?
How did I do that? Oh, right. It wasn't that hard to do it. You know what? Let me tell you how I did this. I was so impacted with that farm bill and being so excited about some of the things that we got in that bill that we could change. I went out and started telling all the farmers, all the black farmers, listen, this is available for you. You can do this. You can do this. This is available. You know what they said to me? They said, "Little girl, you don't know anything about farming. You
Oh,
don't know
wow.
what government has been doing to us as black farmers. You don't understand that we can't do this and we can't get in and they won't do this and discrimination is there." And I said, "Oh, I got it." So not only did I understand it, I had to go and I had to feel it. So I actually said, "Okay, this is so good. Let me practice this. Let me show you that it can be done." If a little girl who don't know anything about farming and was coming out of New York City with red bottoms, high heels on, if I can go in here to do it, anybody can do it. So I went in with that information that I was trying to arm them with, and went in and I built my farm through USDA NRCS. And guess what? I have no loans to them that I pay back. I
Mm.
utilized the programs that was there because I went in with the research and with the understanding of this is how this worked. Oh, I got some land now. I had some land to begin with. So I was utilizing what I had. These 68 acres that I have here, I actually purchased in 1994 with one of the opportunities that I had in my other life to making some money. What am I going to do with it? So I purchased some land. I never knew that this land would be a farm. That was not the intent. It was to do a development, to do housing and economic development. Everybody's thinking this is the way to go. But by doing that and coming in now, when I left New York after 9/11, it said, okay, now what am I going to do? But I took what I had available to me, found out what worked best, and I went in that way with a plan. How do I utilize the programs that's available for the land of what I just spent years working on with policy to make it happen? So for
Well,
me,
tell us
the
about Footprint Farms.
well,
Tell us about your
let
68
me tell
acres.
you, Footprint Farms is located in the city of Jackson. First of all, it's in the urban area, about 15 minutes from the state of Mississippi capital, about 45 minutes from the international airport, and it's in my neighborhood where I choose to be,
Mm.
surrounded by communities that we're helping to empower because these communities look like us. And what they needed was some things that Dion, who's now our coach, Dion Sanders at Jackson State
Amen.
University,
Yes,
who is
he
like
is.
who's like 15 minutes away from me, um, still talking about the same things. What do we do and how do we empower? So Footprint Farms is a full service farm. It's full service. We grow vegetables for all year round in our high tunnels that we did the information for USDA that was put here by USDA, not because they wanted it here, because policy said it could be here. We have fencing that our boundary fencing for all our land is fenced in. Again,
Mhm.
utilizing the programs that was available. We have water sources for our animals, and we call them lakes and ponds. They're called water sources. That's also good for recreation area part of it. So what we did was utilize what was available and what we were trying to talk to our farmers about to take what we had to make it work. So we put all those practices in place that we were talking about so farmers can see you can do this, you can do this, and you can do it this way. And this is how it's done by going in, applying, and understanding what's available to you in your area. And not just Mississippi. We don't just do Mississippi. We actually do small black farmers throughout America and talking to them about what's available. Presently, I sit on the Soil and Water Conservation District. for Mississippi. And we partner with other soil and water conservation districts all over the country. And I actually see what they're doing and how they're doing it to bring it back here to Mississippi and to share with anyone else. This is what else is available. So right now at Footprint Farms, we are making a difference. And at the same time, the business is making money, which is the other part we got to understand. This is a
Amen.
farm, it's a profit center, and
Right.
what we do is use to make wealth and health. And both of
Amen.
those can go together to do that. We also employ people within the community. So we're helping our community grow as well. We're being sustainable and we're being scalable. And we're bringing in other people, that's community people that knew nothing about farming or nothing about the agencies, to put them under the umbrella so they can know and they will know, because we're going to make sure that's happened. And there's a lot of us throughout the country that feels this way. We're also doing a lot in urban areas, like we said, for farmers to farm in urban areas. And ladies, we're not just growing in soil, we're growing in water. What if I told you that you can actually have one of your farms without going outside at all? You can do everything from within your house or within a
Wow.
building. You don't have
Wow.
it's so many different ways now in technology that you can look at farming a different way. Truly, when I'm out on my tractors, I am in pearls. Usually because there's air conditioning there
Yeah.
and GPS to direct the tractor where it needs to go. All of this
Yeah.
is available. It's a new phase of farming, and we, especially Black people, people of color, really got to look at this as a whole nother way of doing business, and the opportunities is there to make a difference. But we also got to hold closer to holding our land that we have, and not just giving it up
Right.
for tax purposes.
Yeah. So obviously, right now, we're in a pandemic. And just like all pandemics and negative phenomena, Black people are disproportionately affected. In what ways has that shown up in farming? Has the pandemic been uniquely harmful to Black farmers, or have you all been able to prosper and thrive because of the increased demand for commodities and for food brought on by a lot of the quarantines? What has COVID-19 looked like for Black farmers?
Well, for a lot of Black farmers, it has not changed a lot of things because we're still growing the amount of food that we could actually sell. The things that have happened for us and some other small farmers is that we've actually increased in sales because of the demand. The other part you got to remember that our communities to begin with didn't have access to a lot of things that was out there. So a lot of things that this pandemic is telling us, telling everybody else you can't do it, don't have. A lot of our communities didn't have it to begin with.
Right.
So that part of access didn't happen or didn't change. For us, being when you break this food chain and not being able to go into the stores to buy when you can go in, that's a big problem. So for small farmers throughout America, that has that's on the front line, still growing and making sure that we're still in the farmers markets, so people can come into the farmers markets to buy food and safely and not go into the grocery stores or other places that they're afraid of because of the pandemic. So a lot of other small farmers have stepped up to the plate to do more growing. But you got to understand too, growing it is one thing, having it, selling it, and marketing is another. So you got to be able to fit in and take advantage of the opportunities when they're given to you.
Yeah.
And for us right now as small farmers, we're utilizing as much as we can and at the same time providing a very needed service. The other side that we're doing, and it has made more farmers look at, you got to be able to work and think smarter. For instance, for Footprint
Mm.
Farms, we are certified in everything they say that has to be certified in. We can take the EBT cards. You can We can do that.
Oh,
I was
So
just about to ask you about that because
y-
there's been this controversy on Twitter, like there often are, about EBT and, access and food insecurity. So people can show up at the farmers market and use their EBT cards with you?
they can bring their EBT card. They can bring their vouchers. They can bring their anything
Awesome.
that's tendering, they can bring it to the farm or to the farmer's market or where we are, and we can tender that into the food and what we have. So that's part of being able to do business and to meet people where they are. And for me, my community is the most important piece. So in order for me to be able to help them, we had to help each other. So we're
Right.
growing it and you can buy it. Here it is. And it's not only better than what's in the stores, it's more reasonable than the stores. But we do more than just grow that food for them. We also bring a lot of the people in the community to work, to also understand how it works. And I don't mean not just working in the fields. I mean, what else can we do in order to build a community? Housing, let's talk about that. Let's see how we can fit this in. It falls on agriculture too. Churches out there. Let's get together. You got some land that's sitting there. You got a community that's hungry. Let me show you how to take that and utilize it, and we can feed with few fish and some loaves of bread, thousands of people just by growing right here on the property that you have right here in the community. Do something different. Utilize it. And this is the information that we bring out, and then we bring people to the table to help make this a reality.
I love what you talked about all along the way in terms of health, because Amber and I recently did a show where we were talking about some myths that are out there in terms of just this focus on obesity, which is kind of a fake thing. What's real are these underlying conditions. What's real is
Yes.
hypertension. What's real is diabetes. What's real are all those things. And I love that in your work, you talk about the underlying conditions. You don't talk about obesity as the thing, right? You want to get down to what's the root of the problem,
The root of
and
the problem.
obesity ain't it. So I love that. And I love when we were talking before, you also talked about how on your farm, one of the things that you all do is you work with formerly incarcerated folks,
Mhm.
and you're able to make sure that they can learn the business and the work of farming. And
Mhm.
so, just as we think about closing the show, can you just talk about um, I guess I'll say how, sort of like you were before, just in terms of how you're using the farm really for community building, and it
Yes.
is health, it is wealth, it is community.
And it's a
Yeah.
model of sustainable liberation too, because it doesn't matter
Yes.
if you get out of jail, if you're placed back into poverty, right? You
Right.
have to have sustainable liberation. You got to learn how to do something that keeps you from being a recidivist, you know? And so this is a wonderful example of that,
Yeah. And
creating opportunities for people to have a pathway into true liberation.
oh,
Yep.
absolutely. It's always that catch-22. I can't hire you because you're a felon, but yet you can't work, you can't hire me. What am I supposed to do? It's
Right.
designed that way. So these are our brothers, our sisters, our fathers, our uncles, somebody's husband, somebody's dad that comes out, sisters that come out from incarceration. And what do we do as a community overall? So we do give them opportunities here to come to the farm, not just to work, but also to learn and to advance. Because here at Footprint Farms, it's not about one, it's about us. It's about that whole village concept. We have several farmers
Yes.
on the farm, and they don't work for me. We work together. In fact, several of my farmers here, one being a second chancer, other being actually from the islands, they actually have, I actually lease to them for a whole dollar, $1 an acre of land,
Wow.
$1. And for that $1, you get 1 acre of land. And what that does for you is the opportunity to be under the farm number that you couldn't get before. Now you have, to be under an
Mhm.
organization that is already set in motion, everything that happens. So now you benefit. But this is the other side of it. We do it together. When we go in and we plant, we don't plant just one, we plant it all. When we harvest one, we harvest all. When we sell it together, we sell it together as one under the umbrella. It's truly has made a difference in their lives, and they're transitioning, to actually being landowners themselves. And now the programs that's available to them, I'm telling them everything, and I want them to go from being from 1 acre to 5 or to 10, and to do your whole homestead doing that way. Because what I didn't tell you, ladies, that under USDA you can have your house, your land, your car, your trucks, your equipment. They'll pay for all that with 1% interest. Okay. I'm not even gonna tell you about why and how.
We're about to become farmers. We're
Okay.
excited.
Child,
You don't know, Dr.
I
Ayers Elliott.
just ate an apple before this, and I got the seeds still on my napkin right
You better
here.
save
Listen,
them.
it's on. It's on. It's on.
So what I'm saying to you is that right now with new and beginning farmers and ranchers under this farm bill, there's components in there to actually help and work with new beginners and small farmers who want to get into it, who have some land, or who even have some ideas of having a warehouse to be able to grow in water base, that they can utilize and come in with a 1% loan. See, under these new guidelines and under this farm bill that the part of Barack Obama's in place is that you can use these programs to buy your land, to build your house on, to farm on, and actually do like a homesteading right there to bring fresh food to your families and to your communities where you can live and sell. So a lot of this is available for you to know and to understand. But for my new farmers and my farmers to be and my future farmers, my 4-H groups, this is what I'm showing them. This is how it can be done. And we're not just talking about it. We're putting people on the land and letting them farm the land and getting ready for them to expand even more. And there's a lot of us out there
And
that's
that
doing
is
that.
just that is so wonderful. I absolutely love the focus on community. I love
Yeah.
the focus on building everything literally from the ground up, right? And it's just such a beautiful repositioning of that cultivation that you talked about before that we associate with slavery and
Yeah.
all of the toil and the trauma of that, and really repurposing that. So, Dr. Ayers Elliott, we want to thank you for being our guest today on Brokish. It has been a pleasure to have you school us
Yes.
in all things farming. And so thank you for that opportunity today. So, Amber, I'm going to pass it to you. Let the brokers know what is their homework for this episode.
Okay, y'all, just like the real teachers, we easing back into a little more real homework. So
Yes.
take a deep breath, okay? We done took it easy on y'all all season long. So the first thing is we want you to check out Dr. Ayers Elliott at her website so you can see what Footprints Farm is up to, and also donate a few dollars to support her work, because this really is such a model of sustainable liberation that we all need to be invested in. And also, how much did you learn today that you had no idea about that was happening all around us? Black farming is such a microcosm of what is happening in Black America, right? So we post the receipts every week, and we don't give y'all no smoke about looking at the receipts. This week, I want you to pick an article from the receipts, and we post them on the website. Read it, and then hop on social media and tell us what you read and what you thought about it so we can keep the conversation going about Black farming. So that's it.
Okay, y'all know Amber can't never get these websites right. So
I
Dr. Ayers
had a
Elliott is
list
here, and I
growing
want to
up.
make sure that we get her website right in the
Mhm.
homework. It is footprintfarmsms.com.
She is
Correct.
so good.
Footprintfarmsms.com.
I had a
Okay.
lisp growing up, okay?
Well,
And she
maybe you
is
shouldn't be
so
the one giving
rude.
out the websites then,
Yo,
Amber.
y'all, listen,
Mhm.
just
Eh,
ableist,
As
okay?
Saras, here we go. Um, you can also go to our Instagram, which is
Oh,
Footprint Farms, or our Facebook page as well.
Yeah.
well, yes, Dr. Ayers Elliott, thank you. Of course, the promises that this country made to us were shallow, and we never were able to realize them as advertised. But our ancestors taught their enslavers how to care for and benefit from this land just to rob us of it and relegate us to keep toiling on it for pennies. But despite that history, Black farmers continue to work and cultivate the land that still exists in our communities. And we continue to demonstrate our resilience, that we won't allow history, public policy, or other challenges to keep us from the industry that represents our arrival here to this land. And it's good to see Black farmers and co-ops popping up and advocating for us and the future of farming. We are reclaiming our time and reclaiming our land.
Yes.
Thanks for tuning in, and we look forward to catching up with you on the next episode of Brokish.
All right, good people. Thanks for listening to Brokish. For more episodes, visit us at brokish.com or subscribe, and Brokish will get direct deposited into your favorite podcast app on the 1st and 15th. Share Brokish with your friends and join the conversation on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Music for Brokish is Come Get Some by Blank and Kit. Until next time, goodbye and good luck.